Hi, I wanted to make this video because I've been thinking. And this time I've been thinking about holidays. And the reason I've been thinking about holidays is because I've often wondered if holidays are worth it. And because I've recently been on one, I thought that now might be a good time to give that a bit more thought while the experience is fresh in my mind. So it feels a bit of a strange question to ask because holidays are supposed to be a luxury item that most people aspire to. So it would seem obvious that they are worth it. Otherwise, why would so many people want to do them? But they do come with a cost in various different ways, and I can't seem to find an easy way to work out if the various costs of a holiday are actually worth what they give you in return. So I'm wondering if there's any way to feel more confident about whether I'm making the right decision when I decide to spend my precious time, effort, and money on a holiday. So when I'm talking about holidays, I'm really thinking about the more substantial trips away rather than a weekend break somewhere local. So it would be for at least a week, generally involves getting on a plane and also spending quite a lot of money. So my recent holiday was a week in Tenerife and it cost £4,000 for 4 people. And although I don't usually prefer going all-inclusive, we decided to go all-inclusive for this one because we thought it would be an easier way to keep everyone happy, given that we were taking both of our children with us and we all tend to like different things when it comes to eating and drinking. So it was quite expensive for a week away, but we recently inherited a few £1,000s, so we decided to spend that money on a family holiday so that we could enjoy some time together and hopefully a bit of sunshine as a nice way to remember the person who left the money to us. So this time we were spending money that we hadn't originally expected to have, which did make the decision a bit easier when it came to booking the holiday. But I still had some doubts about whether it would be worth that much money and whether it was the right choice for us. And I started to feel that even more when I was packing for the holiday because I left it a bit last minute, thinking that it would be easy. But that turned out to be a bit of a mistake and it got quite stressful when I was running out of time and still hadn't got everything organised. So it'd been a while since we'd needed any summer clothes and they were a bit harder to find than I expected. And I realised that there were a few things that I actually needed to buy. And the weather forecast was looking a bit mixed, so that made it harder to decide what we'd need. And it basically all just got a bit more complicated than I expected. And I started to wonder why I was putting myself through it when I could just stay at home and not have to worry about it and save a load of money. So I do realise how spoilt I probably sound when I'm complaining about that, but I'm just being honest that the packing process turned into something more stressful than I expected it to be. So it added to the question about whether the effort, of going away was really worth it. There are other things that we could have done with that money, so deciding to spend it on a holiday and causing myself some stress and then probably having nothing to show for it afterwards once the memories and the suntan has faded, started to feel like it might not have been the right decision. And of course then there's the time that it takes to go on holiday. Most people only have a limited amount of free time throughout the year. So choosing to go away on a holiday means less time that you could spend maybe visiting family or doing some DIY around the house or even just relaxing at home. So you've got the stress in the run up to the trip, the financial cost of the trip, and the time that you could be spending on other things. So I think those seem to be the main main costs. Excuse me. And there's also the environmental cost, but that's really a whole other subject and not for today. So, what do you get in return? And I think this is where it gets a bit tricky, because really you're taking a gamble on what you hope to get in return. I do like a little gamble, as you may already know. So maybe that's why I still keep on having holidays, even if sometimes they feel like they cost more than they maybe provide in return. I think one of the most important things I get from a holiday is the value in looking forward to it, once I've made the decision to book it. And if you've seen my video about happiness, you'll know that I think one of the 4 best ways to work on happiness is to make plans for the future that you're looking forward to. And I've actually already booked a holiday for 2027 for that exact reason. It was only £50 per person to secure that booking, so not too much to lose if we don't end up going. But having it planned to look forward to is worth that money to me already. It's the sort of trip that needs a lot of planning, so I will look forward to doing some research for that trip. But when the looking forward to bit is over and the actual trip arrives, then you get to find out whether it actually was worth it or not. And I know that I've had some holidays that were so good that they would have been worth much more to me than I actually paid for them. But I wouldn't have known that in advance. I still think about those and feel really happy that I've had those experiences in my life. But not every holiday turns out to be like that, and there may be others that you end up wishing you'd never taken. I had a holiday a few years ago that was for 2 weeks, and there were 4 of us, so it was quite expensive. But one of us got sick after about 3 days, and then there was a kind of domino effect where over the course of the next 10 days, each of us got taken down for a few days. And it was such a shame because we had high hopes for that holiday, but it just wasn't possible to have a great time when you're feeling terrible and just want to stay in bed. So I don't really look back and wish I hadn't gone, but I think my husband probably does. But it certainly didn't give the returns that we were hoping for when we gave our time and money to it. And I think there's no getting away from the fact that getting ill is always a risk when you go on holiday, and there isn't really much you can do about it. And there's also the risk of having problems on your journey. I've had a few experiences with that risk too. I've spent the night on the floor at Luton Airport. I've also spent 3 hours sitting on a plane before it even started on the 10-hour journey. And I've had a flight cancelled at the very last minute when I was already at the airport. So, when those things happen, you can easily be left feeling that you wish you hadn't bothered. I can also remember another trip where I had to stand in a 2-hour queue to get through immigration after arriving at the country I was visiting. And that was after a long flight. And in that moment, I swore that I would never go back there because clearly they didn't want visitors, because if they did, how could they allow our arrival to be so awful? But as it turned out, we had a brilliant holiday, and so I'd forgotten all about that horrible experience by the time we came home. And I've been back there again since and didn't have that bad experience again. So I think it is the risk that you have to take when you travel. So those are some of the things that can go wrong. But is there anything that you can actually rely on to be good about a holiday when you choose to take one, other than maybe just being able to look forward to it? Well, unfortunately, I think the answer to that is no. There isn't anything that you can 100% rely on to be great. You can do your research and make your plans to try and make sure that you'll be getting all the things that you hope for from your holiday, but you can't rely on anything. You might get sick, you might get delayed, you might get terrible weather, or you might get all of those things. So really, it's no wonder that people sometimes get a bit stressed in the run up to a holiday. It's going to cost you time, energy, money, and you might have a terrible time. Those things are all true. However, on my recent trip to Tenerife, I didn't get sick, we didn't get delayed, and we didn't get terrible weather, and we did have a great time. So the holiday delivered all the things that I hoped it would. We had some nice walks, ate lots of lovely food, enjoyed some cold beers in the sunshine, and made some nice memories together as a family. So was it a good use of the money that we inherited? I'd say yes, I think it was. We can think about those memories and we can put some photos up at home and know that the money we inherited gave us some special time together and a bit of a suntan too. But how might I have felt if that trip had gone wrong? Well, I would have been gutted, but I would also have tried to accept that sometimes things don't work out as good as they could have, and that's just the luck of the draw. Maybe it's the gambler in me, but I think I do accept that some you win and some you lose. It does feel good to win and not so good to lose, but sometimes you just have to go for it and hope for the best. I think with lots of things in life, you have to take a bit of a risk if you want to have a more adventurous and varied experience. And part of that is accepting the possibility that it may not always go as well as you hoped. But whatever happens, it will be an experience. And it may turn out to be the best experience you ever had. So that should be worth a bit of a risk. I can remember a friend of mine once said to me that she wanted to spend her time collecting up memories so that she could think about them when she's old and in her rocking chair. And I like that idea, and I hope that I'm collecting up some nice memories to look back on when I can't do these things anymore. I do worry about things going wrong, but I also try to accept that I can't control everything. I often used to finish a holiday and think, I wish I'd known in advance that everything was going to be okay. But of course, that's impossible. So now I just try to believe that in advance, and that feels a nicer way to look at it and does help to stop me worrying about things that probably won't happen. So, in terms of money, I wouldn't borrow money to go on holiday, so if I can't afford to pay for it, then I won't go. I do always set aside a certain budget for holidays. So I think as long as I stick within that, then I'm not risking spending more than I can afford. And in terms of time, I wouldn't have enough money to spend all my available time on holiday. So I think that one really takes care of itself. So after all that, have I decided that holidays are worth it? Well, I can definitely see why I struggled with that question because I don't think the answer can ever be known in advance. You have to take the holiday first and then decide if it was worth it. So, really, you have to be willing to take a bit of a risk. And I'm actually quite comforted by that answer because I do feel that I'm taking a bit of a risk when I book a holiday, but now I feel more comfortable that that's just part of the deal. And I wonder if other people have a different way of deciding whether or not a holiday is worth it to you. I'd be interested to know if you wanted to leave a comment. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. So thanks for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye!